Welcome to Hypnotic Authenticity. This is a place to reflect, a place to unwind perhaps, to understand yourself a little better, and to gently reshape the patterns that guide your life. A little bit like a conversation between you and your deeper self. So I'm offering a sprinkling of hypnosis, insight, some meditative guidance, and it's all going to be woven throughout a deep sense of practicality. So that if I do my job well, each episode is going to help you feel more grounded, also more open, and more authentically you. So if you're ready, let's begin.
Hi, are you a bit sick of not being able to just be you? Are you kind of having to put a brave face on it? Are you having to try to pretend to be something other than you're not in order to get people to like you, in order to do well at work, in order to do well in any social environment? Are you kind of having to wear the burden of somebody else's expectation of what you should be like in order to make your basic needs be met? If you are, then I'm talking to you. This is one of a whole series of videos about something that's kind of called nice guy syndrome. So it's a video mainly for men, but obviously, it might help to shed a light on this subject for women too. This is a subject that creeps up on us. It's one of those elements of life that can trigger a midlife crisis, in actual fact, because it's so kind of innocuous. It just kind of grows day by day by day by day by day until suddenly one day it's just absolutely intolerable. So if you find that you are having to pretend to be someone else in order to get your basic needs met, consider this kind of gradual approach where from a very, very early age, probably childhood, you found yourself unable to get your needs met in your family situation, let's say. Let's speculate. And because children are naturally kind of self-centered, you kind of automatically come to the conclusion that must be your fault, right? That it must be elements of you which are causing you to not get whatever it is that you need. And the big thing then is, what is the conclusion that you came to, which then got stuck in the back of your mind, which then gets compounded by the stories that you see around you, by the experiences with other people, by the messages of the media and culture and capitalism and modernity and all this kind of stuff. So the interesting reason why this tends to pertain more to men is that there are a whole slew of messages which tend to be slapped into the face of men that say that there's something pretty bad about masculinity, right? That masculinity causes divorce, that masculinity is violent, untrammeled aggression, childish, it's stupid, it's uncontrolled. It's like a wild, angry beast. If at a time when you are unable to get your needs met in the familial situation and you're looking for reasons why you are at fault as a boy or as a teenager, and these kind of messages are around you, maybe your mum and dad were split up, maybe you've just read this in books, maybe this was the time of feminist, very, very strong drive as to the negative aspects of masculinity. Maybe it's just from talking to individuals. Maybe you had no strong male role models in your life. There's a whole variety of reasons why potentially you can come to the conclusion that masculinity is bad, that there are elements of you, therefore, which are kind of like an uncontrolled lion, that if you're yourself, well, then you're not going to ever get your needs met. And that's the reason why you're not getting your needs met as a child. It's because of this masculine, violent evilness which permeates your core. So you create a shame-based story based around something which is biologically essential to yourself, right? Your masculinity, which is just a thing, right? Now, I'm not going to talk too much about what masculinity is, because I think there's a kind of a spectrum, right? I think everybody, well, in my experience anyway, everybody has elements of femininity and masculinity, and it's just culture that has kind of attached labels to certain things. It doesn't mean to say they're necessarily right, but anyway, there are gentle elements to ourselves, there are violent elements to ourselves. There are things which are intrinsically, biologically different between men and women. There are also cultural drives which push men and women to be labeled in different ways. So it's partly nature, partly nurture. Culture, interestingly, leaps upon nature's differences and exaggerates them. And I'm going to do a completely separate video about how it's very useful for culture that men are insecure, that men are driven to prove themselves in a way that women are not. So we'll hold that for a separate video. But the point is that you end up with a message inside of yourself which comes from these early developmental stages in your life that kind of says, all right, there are parts of me which are associated with my masculinity that are kind of toxic, they're kind of dangerous. And if I want to get my needs met, because clearly I'm not getting them met at the minute, what I need to do is stop all of that, right? So you kind of box that in and throw away the key. But of course, this is an essential element to your physiology. It's not something that you can turn on and off like a tap. So the conclusion is, well, I kind of must be nice to people. I kind of must be unmanly in order to get my needs met. And take that a step further, my understanding of my worth would therefore come particularly from the approval of women, because that would mean that I was different to other men. Yeah. And you could go a step further and say, and the ultimate approval of my acceptance by women is when they're all wanting to have sex, right? You can take this to different levels. But the point is, in order to attain the ultimate approval of women, you're going to have to deny the toxic parts, which apparently are masculine. So you limit those. You portray a sense of perfection. There's an implicit contract going on which says, if I'm good, if other people like me and they feel good, they'll treat me as being perfect. And therefore, I don't need to remember anything about those toxic aspects of my masculinity, because between us, we'll just pretend that they don't exist. So there's this sort of implicit story. It's a complicit story, in actual fact, because you need the other people that are in the circle to agree to it. But of course, it can't work, right? Because even if someone does therefore treat you as being perfect, it's not you that they're treating as perfect. It's the story. It's the mask. It's the nonsense. And so you kind of, over ages, over development, embed this in your sense of what it is that you need to be to get your needs met. And of course, the problem is it does kind of work sometimes. So that kind of compounds the view that you have. But because it's not you, because it's not authentic, because in order to do that, you kind of have to hide from yourself. You kind of have to throw away all the joyful parts of yourself, right? The creative, risk-taking, playful, energetic parts of yourself in order to theoretically get your needs met. So you end up failing to achieve anywhere near your full potential because you're living in the shadow of yourself, right? So this is kind of going into owning your dark side. It's also kind of going into games that you play with other people. But the end result is your entire life becomes like a complicit, covert game where you hope that everybody else will pretend along with you that the toxic elements of your masculinity don't exist, right? And then you spend all day and all night trying to make sure that you don't muck up and you remain consistent with yesterday and all of the false stuff which has been created, all of the paraphernalia, and it's utterly exhausting. So if any of that is relatable, I'm going to do a whole series of videos on specific aspects of the symptoms that result from this perception. So you can look at any of those. But the point is, this is a story that you have learned in childhood, and you've forgotten that it's a story, right? It just feels like you. It feels like it's always been you. It feels like it kind of works, but it kind of hurts. And you kind of don't know what to do about it, right? In my prescription, anyway. So somehow or other, you need to get to the point of realizing that that is a haphazard perception that came from the chance occurrences that life have brought you, and that they may be correct, but they might not, that there are other perceptions out there that could be equally valid. It's just that because you didn't have the experiences in life, you never came to those conclusions. So that you can get to the point where it's no longer necessary to maintain this approach that you're currently doing. So part of it is down to understanding that what you're asking isn't deliverable, right? That you are handing over your personal power, your personal ability to choose your self-worth to someone else, mainly to women, but that other people are going to do what they're going to do, that if you hand that over to someone else, it possibly might work, but the likelihood is that they're going to do whatever they're going to do. So there is an element of making a choice on that, but there is also a nice element of coming to an understanding of yourself that, all right, it's just a story. And therefore, maybe there are other equally valid stories, and then you can start to chew on what that is. So as like all my videos, in actual fact, the conclusion is go sit with yourself and think about what it is that's going on. How do you associate with other men versus other women? As a simple question, Do you seem to get on better with women than men? That's a big one. Right? Do you not have many male friends? That's a big one. Do you find yourself trying to please women? If you're in an intimate relationship, is this supremely important and it's worth putting all of the energy of all of the essence of your life into? If you're not in a relationship, are you kind of desperately trying to hide the evidence of the bad parts of your masculinity in order to find a partner? I mean, we can talk about this forever. I'll do this in separate videos, but obviously this is not an attractive thing because you're not being yourself. So even if someone does pick you, they're picking you for all the wrong reasons that were never you in the first place. So go have a look at the kind of the headings of my other videos, and hopefully you'll find something which is valuable. The end result of all of this is that it's not your fault, that in actual fact, the shame-based story running inside of your head is not real. It's just a conclusion that you came to. And it's easily fixable the moment that you notice what's going on.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If it resonates with you, then follow my podcast. I would also personally be really grateful if you might wish to leave a quick rating. It genuinely helps others to discover the podcast. If you personally would like more guided meditations, you want some deeper insights, you'll find all my links in the description. If you prefer a more visual boost, then you might want to check out my YouTube channel called Authentic Life Hypnosis. And if you're looking to do some deeper work that goes beyond one-way audio, then obviously you're very welcome to reach out. Equally, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.